Keiko is on Bajor for 2 more weeks. Jake has babysat Ensign Pran's hatchlings a couple of times and made sure their little wings didn't get tangled. And Quark's antimonium options and quadro-triticale futures and powdered newt supplements are all wiped out. Hey, everybody, welcome to the 7th Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hey, very good job, Ryan, for getting through that tongue twister right there.
Excellent.
We're joined by a very special guest, the most special of all guests, Mr. ARMIN SHIMERMAN. Thank you.
Very kind. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, but I didn't do it as well as ARMIN did it. The quadro-triticale futures. I actually had to rewind that a few times. I was like, if I'm going to say that, I got to make sure I say it the way ARMIN said it.
Well, probably ARMIN didn't say it the way the writers wanted it either. I probably just said it the way I wanted to say it, and it came out the way it did.
The fact that you remembered it and got the words out was amazing to me, because as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, God, that's so hard for somebody to say. There's nobody that knows what it is, but I had to write it down too. Antimonium options, quadro-triticale futures, and powdered newt supplements. I was like, how the hell is he going to get to these lines? And I was surprised.
We don't know how many takes it took for me to say it. We don't know how many takes it took. It could have taken 25. We don't know. I do know that one of the blessings of being on Deep Space Nine was that I usually did not have to have any technobabble. They left that to Cullum and Max and some of the others. But
Sadig, yeah.
But I didn't. Sadig, absolutely. But I didn't have to do that. So if I have to do it once in 7 years, not so bad.
Yeah, not so bad. You nailed it. You nailed it. It definitely. I was like, I know he doesn't know what this is, because there's nobody that knows what this stuff is. You're talking about things that it's very difficult to talk about something you have no concept of what it is. You just know it's something, right?
Well, actually, the powdered newt supplement I could get at any gym. So for your pre-workouts. By the way, very quickly,
1 out of 3.
Yeah, very quickly. This is Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 18, Business as Usual, written by Bradley Thompson and David Weddle, directed by Alexander Siddig. What a deal. This is April 7th, 1997. I should have thrown that at the top, but we got so excited. And thank you for joining us, ARMIN. This is going to be a great time. So we don't know how well you remember this, almost 25 years later. But first of all, do you remember anything about Sid as a director?
He was always very gentle. I can't say specifically for this episode, but I remember other episodes that he directed, at least one. He was always very gentle, kind, considerate. There was always a sense of it was an on-job learning as you went sort of feeling from Sid. So we had to be gentle with him because he was learning as we were shooting. I think we had so many actors who became directors that it was always sort of a babysitting sort of situation for us. But the trick was to remember that he was going to be one of us the next week, and therefore we couldn't get too riled up about it.
And speaking of babysitting, Cirroc, as you know, you babysat Ensign Pran's hatchlings a couple times and made sure their little wings didn't get tangled. So that was a fun line for you there.
Yeah, and we had baby.
Uh-oh.
It was fun to see him in those little outfits, looking really cute. But I wanted to go back a little bit to ARMIN, your storyline in this episode. We had heard you speak a lot about cousin
Gala.
Gala?
Yeah, we heard you speak a lot about him, and finally we get to see this cousin Gala, played by Josh Pius.
Mm-hmm.
But I was excited to see this combination because I felt like this was somebody that was more successful than you, if that makes any sense.
It doesn't, but there were some Ferengi that were more successful than
Yeah, Cirroc, I kind of had the same thought.
Because you always mention like my cousin Gala Yeah,
He had several moons. Yes, he had several moons that I was in.
He always bragged about several moons. Right. Right.
Cirroc, you're breaking up a little bit on us. I don't know if you need to close an app or
let me log out and I'll log right back in.
All right. And I'll just say real quick that I was thinking the same thing when I saw Cousin Gala, since it was the first time we'd seen him, but we'd mentioned him a bunch of times in previous episodes. He had a lot of NAMs, what we call NAMs, non-appearance mentions, because we believe that, you know, the regulars are credited. But there are a lot of people that they're mentioned in an episode, but they didn't get paid that week, but their character was mentioned, and we feel like they should get some kind of credit or some kind of notation that says, hey, this character's story was furthered, was continued, was enriched, even if the actor wasn't paid that week to play the character. And Cousin Gala had, I'm looking right now, we see you, Cirroc. We're talking about Cousin Gala. He had 6 NAMs already. So he was one of these characters that we heard about a bunch of times before we actually even see him. 6 times. So finally, the 7th time he actually appeared. And my first thought when he popped on was kind of the first thing you said, Cirroc, was who is the actor playing him? Because I was like really interested. And I also noticed he played it seemingly a lot like Jeff Combs plays Brunt. That was my impression when I first saw him acting.
Well, I don't know what inspired him. I do know that for the Ferengi on the Next Generation, whenever they were cast, they were sent some of my videos from the original Ferengi episode on Next Generation to say this is what a Ferengi is. Now, he may have seen that, and my performance in TNG is closer to Jeff's than it is to mine later on in Deep Space Nine. But so maybe he was affected by that, or maybe he was aware of the show and was indeed trying to emulate Jeff's performance, which is a different type of Ferengi, a much more aggressive, acquisitive sort of Ferengi than even I was, and certainly nothing like than Rom and Nog.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and as you've mentioned before, you're much prouder of your acting as far as Quark is concerned than your portrayal, I should say, of the original Ferengi. So you'd probably rather them watch Quark as a training video than you know, Next Generation Ferengi, which were, I feel like it seemed like, I don't know whose decisions they were, the writers or the directors, they kind of did the Ferengi a little bit of a disservice, making them so one-dimensional and aggressive and not giving them the depth that you and Max and Aron ended up giving them later on.
Well, of course, hindsight is 20/20. So what all of us did, you know, influenced writers over the course of many years. The original Ferengi, as I understood it, as it was explained to me, which I didn't do, which is why I've apologized for that performance ad infinitum. They were supposed to be Yankee Clipper captains. That's what I was told. That they were supposed to be hard-dealing, no-nonsense, people from Maine sort of people who were only interested in commerce. Unfortunately, as I've said many times, they hired me and I fucked it up royally. They were supposed to be the new Klingons, actually, on TNG. They were supposed to be that. There was no sense of them being comic. There was no sense of them being rather oafish. I did that, and much to my chagrin and shame. So one can understand why the early performances of the Ferengi are so one-dimensional, because my performance was one-dimensional, and I won't take all the blame. I'll take 95% of the blame. But the director of that first episode, whose name I've forgotten, probably Freudian that I have, is because he pushed that one-dimensionality as opposed to asking for a three-dimensional performance.
Interesting.
But he only has 5% of the blame. I carry the other 95%.
Well, Cirroc, we see you in here. You fine, by the way, just in case you're wondering. You're back with the vengeance.
Yeah, no, I was just listening to. I can hear you guys on my end, and Armin, I like the answer you gave about, you're defining this Ferengi character, and one of the things that appeals to me about Quark is that he is more dynamic, and there are other things that can move him, his emotional needle, besides just money. And in some cases, you actually take these different moral uh, directions that define you as somebody who's compassionate or caring or capable of loving. So there's so many layers to who Quark is, and I think that this episode in particular, shows that kind of depth to Quark, because he's not just motivated by the finances. You can't buy him out with the money. You're offered in this episode, 10 million bars of platinum or whatever it was. And the temptation of that doesn't override you making what you consider to be the right decision, which is saving lives.
Right. There are two principles at work there for a Ferengi. One is the commerce, which we're all familiar with, but always in the background. And the writers gave me a number of times to express this. They're also nonviolent. There's a great speech they've given me a great speech in another episode that I had to Sisko about the fact that they're not killers. They don't kill other people. They don't kill other Ferengi. They are nonviolent. And so here he's caught between two ethos, and good for Quark for choosing the right one. Thank you, Cirroc. But it was, we all know, Cirroc, you and I and Ryan and everyone else, that you can only say words that are given you on the page, and you can only express those feelings if you're given the opportunity by the dialogue that you have on the page.
Yeah, no, the writers have a grasp of what they want to do and the kind of stories they want to tell, and clearly they're not just flat one-dimensional characters. They want to show everybody in kind of a layered way, so that you don't know which way they might go. They might lean this way, they might lean that way. You're not really sure, and that uncertainty what makes the storytelling so good. Because I'm not sure what Quark is going to do next. He might sell everybody out, or he might do the right thing and save lives.
And we can say the same thing about Jake as well. We're not sure which way Jake's going to go. Is he going to be a dutiful son? Is he going to be rebellious? Mm-hmm. Is he going to side with his father, or is he going to side with his friend Nog? We don't know. And as you say, and I want to second this, that's good writing.
It's good writing.
There's a lot of good writing in this episode. There were also a lot of aliens mentioned and aliens brought up and names and all these things where I'm just like, oh, they're doing extra homework today with all this stuff. One character, and a great cast of new characters or one episode characters, including Gala. I also want to talk about Haggith, who is I guess that's how a Spaniard would pronounce sheep's bladder. Am I right? No, nobody. Don't the Scottish people eat haggis, which is like sheep's
haggis? Yes, they eat haggis, which is bladder. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Spaniards, especially Barcelonans, have let's move on. So somebody got that joke. Somebody somewhere. I'm not saying they liked it, but they got it. So Haggith was this very interesting character the moment he walks on, because he had such not just an accent, but a fashion of speech that was very interesting and deliberate. And I found myself wondering, is that really the way the actor speaks, or was he putting on extra emphasis on different words and fashions of speech? And Armin, could you shine a little light on that for us?
Sure. So the actor was Steven Berkoff, who is a very famous playwright and even more famous director both in the United States and in England. So the way he spoke is the way he speaks. Language is very important to Mr. Burkhoff. So he's very careful about the words he uses. And he wears his emotions on his sleeve. You always know where Burkhoff is. But he's very careful about the word choices. So that what you just mentioned is a idiosyncrasy. I believe that's the right way to say that. Of Mr. Burkhoff's. He is, and again, he's a playwright. So again, he's a wordsmith. So the way he says words, he appreciates words perhaps a little bit more than most, because not only as an actor does he get to say the words, but as a writer, he has to choose which words are going to be in his script as well.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of interesting things with classical material. For instance, he wrote a play about Ophelia from Hamlet. He also wrote a play about the Greeks, which is called The Greeks. They're wonderful, wonderful plays, very linguistic, very word-centric. So again, he's very careful about the words he uses.
And you were saying before we were recording that you played a secondary role as kind of a peacemaker or kind of a buffer on the episode during filming. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I usually don't want to denigrate any of the actors I worked with, and I'm not going to denigrate Steven Burkhoff because he is an incredible talent. But he has a hair-triggered temper, which I was aware of before working with him. His reputation preceded him. And he was less than happy that week that we were shooting. I don't remember the specifics, but everything seemed to not be going his way. But he is, forgive me, Mr. Burkhoff, but he is a little bit of a diva. And we didn't have a lot of divas on our show. So I was quite concerned that he was going to cause problems in our shooting schedule if he refused to come out of his trailer or that sort of thing. So I spent the week babysitting him, making sure that I calmed his nerves, explained everything to him, reassured him that it was all going to be fine, ran the lines with him so that he was comfortable about that. And when the week was over, I sighed a sigh of relief that my babysitting chores were over. But not until the last day was I ever sure that there wasn't going to be a blow-up.
Sounds stressful.
It was, but it was also one of the best episodes that I got as Quark, and I was doing everything I could to make it as good as possible. And I didn't want any bumps in the road to foul up what I consider to be one of the better scripts for Quark.
Well, it's interesting that you say that about Mr. Burkhoff, because in some ways, the quote-unquote diva side of him played well into this character.
Yeah.
And the role he had to play as this international or intergalactic arms dealer who basically gets his way or you suffer. So I feel like a lot of that actually was poured into the performance of this character and played well on screen for the two of you going heads up in this chess match of wit and learning each other's weaknesses and strengths.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good way to put it. He is a very charismatic actor. Every time you see him on screen or on stage especially, he eats up the whole space. He's a huge personality. So the casting department and the producers and the director, Sid, did a very good job of casting him, and he didn't blow up. So they got the best of him without the worst of him. But certainly good casting, because those qualities were needed for that character, and he did that. And I must say, I was a little bit selfish. The more I got to know him off camera, the more I could use that on camera.
Interesting. Yeah, he just had such an interesting way of delivering lines that it's really interesting to hear that he was kind of that interesting, enigmatic kind of character off camera as well. And yeah, that's good job, Sid, right? He nailed it.
Yeah, good job, Sid, because probably Sid had to handle him as much as I did. I spent a lot of time with him, but Sid had to work with him in front of the camera. He's a wonderful performer, and we've all learned that sometimes wonderful performers have massive egos, which makes them wonderful performers.
Right.
And you have to take one with the other. If you want the talent, you have to take the ego as well. And he was very talented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely fit the role in this particular episode. There was a moment in this episode as well where Sisko really goes heads up with you in the office, where he basically says, "This is how it's going to be, and that's it." And he's pretty tough. And I like the moment because, you know, part of you thinks you're going to get away with everything you want to do. You're like, technically, I didn't do anything. They were holograms. I didn't sell any guns. What guns? You know, I didn't. You don't have any proof of anything. And Sisko says something like, "Well, if you so much as litter on the promenade,
yeah,
I'm going to be on your ass," or something to that effect. And I love the back and forth with you, because here you are. He knows what you've done. You know what you've done, but you've done it in such a smart way that there's really no evidence of it. You can't really catch me red-handed with anything. So just another like cat and mouse game that I think you play well with not only Sisko but with Rene Aubergenois as Odo. Just I love watching you. I love watching you do your thing, Armin. It's just,
well, thank you. It's credit to the writers. As far as Quark dealing with authority, they had to walk a very fine tightrope, because on the one hand, you have a character who runs a bar who is a series regular and has to reoccur in most of, if not all of the episodes. You have another series regular, a whole bunch of series regulars who are authoritarian figures who can't be made to look stupid by this one character getting away with murder for 7 years. So they have to walk a fine line of keeping me as devious as they could without besmirching the intelligence of the other characters. And I believe, for the most part, although this was indeed, as you say, a wonderful scene, but it wasn't often that I got to work with Avery. And it may be because of this dilemma, that if there were a lot of scenes, there would be lots of opportunities for one of the two of us to look stupid. And God forbid that Sisko should look stupid, and thankfully, God forbid that Quark didn't get to look stupid that often either. So this cat and mouse, as you put it, Cirroc, is exactly the game they had to play in order to make both characters viable for an audience.
Very interesting. So we've got to jump to a very quick break right now, but I want to talk about that a little bit more because this is really good stuff. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back on the 7th rule.